Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Alhamdulillah, this is now episode 29 of the podcast, The Forward, with myself, Mahdi Locke, and I'm joined today by brother Idris Watts, and we're here to talk about quite a few things, including Eid and Dhul Hijjah and the symbolism of Hajj and Arabic and our past and our futures to a certain extent. So I think I'll start off, if Idris, because we've known each other for a long time, but if you could start with an introduction of yourself.
Right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Yeah, me and we both go way back. I think, when were you at uni?
Yes, this would be year 2000.
2000. I graduated in 2001.
Yeah,
I think.
That's correct.
Yeah, so we both met, and I think we both accepted Islam. I accepted Islam in '98 in my first year.
And I was 2000.
In your first year?
Yeah, first year, yeah.
Right, yeah. So we both sort of, we both met at Leeds University studying Arabic. We were both doing an Arabic degree. And I think Khalid Williams was there as well around the same time. Was he the same year as you?
He was 2 years later.
Oh, right.
He was the year after me, I think. No, wait. When I came back, when I was a third year student, he was a first year student.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Yeah, so we've got like some good, if you call them convert Arabicists, with, that came out of that period, really. And so, and then we all of us sort of reunited in Morocco. And that was a real, I think, life-changing experience for us. I mean, I just accepted Islam in 98, 99, and then I moved to Fez for my 1 year program, just like you did. And that year they had the Rihla in Morocco. That year Sheikh Hamza Yusuf was holding it in Fez. So Morocco was a real life-changing experience for me as a new Muslim. And really, I didn't look back from there. Really, I mean, and we've both of us have spent long periods of time in Morocco.
Oh, Morocco is because like I said, like you said, the same situation. Because I think when you first become Muslim out here in England, and I've written about this on my blog and other places, it can be a bit of an overwhelming experience because people are sort of pulling you here and there, and there are a lot of differences and political issues coming up. And then when you come to Morocco and you see everyone's just doing the same thing, everyone's just being a Muslim
and getting on with it.
No one's arguing. No one's at each other's throats. No one's spending Eid in the emergency room because of a dispute. It just happened. So that was a really, really relieving experience, I would say, if anything. To spend that 1 year in Morocco, get my Arabic down, just see Islam in motion, and just people just doing it naturally, and then. I went back again in 2008 to Morocco, and it's just, very, very comfortable. It's like I'd say it's almost like a comfort zone,
right?
But it's a very, very comfortable place to be and to expose, like as an introduction to the Islamic world, the Muslim world, and it's a great place to learn Arabic. I highly benefit from there.
Yeah, I mean, I see Morocco as like my formative years. Like, I remember when I was in Fez once, Abdel Ilah, if you remember, had the tea shop or coffee shop near the centre.
Yeah.
Across from Hotel Zalagh. I remember him seeing me one time walking back from the American Language Centre where we both taught English. And he looked at me and he said, Fez has raised you. He said, and that really stuck with me, those words. I think they were real formative years for me. And people say to me today, even, they say, do you miss Morocco? And I say, I don't really miss it, rather because I feel like it's always with me. And that was really important for me, that I had some sort of place where I could ground myself and really feel connected to a land that really conveys a grounded tradition of the religion that I was following. And so I spent about 7 years there and came back to England. I mean, Matt, you've obviously moved over to Saudi, so you're still in the Muslim world. And so I've come back and been in England now for nearly 10 years. So it's been a real interesting period of trying to now find myself back in England after those many years in Morocco.
Morocco is I'll always see that as home, even though it's not. I'm not a Maliki in fiqh. I was always very, very. I never felt unwelcome in Morocco. That's one thing about Morocco. You never ever feel like out of place or unwelcome. People are very, very, I found, open and friendly and accommodating. So maybe that's one of the reasons why I think, again, Allah had me leave, because I think it can get too comfortable after a while. I think it's nice, but it's always nice to know that I always feel if I ever need somewhere to go to, that's where you can go. I think if other doors close, that's a door that's sort of always open.
Yeah, and
it's like your parents' house or something like that.
And I think this theme sort of brings us on to the topic today, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About Hajj and the significance of this month, Dhul Hijjah, and this theme of like this concept of separation, initiation, and return, and moving through the phases of life and finding significance in them, I think is really, really important in this day and age, where people feel really ungrounded. They don't really feel like they have something that they can rely on. But these sort of themes help people find relevance of where their life's going. I think that's really important. And so I think we move.
Yeah, I know it's true, because I was saying on that note, because I always think of the hadith, and it's in the Arba'in Nawawiyya, where the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that you be in the dunya gharib and abir as-sabil, be a stranger or a wayfarer, but you want to be someone who's grounded in something.
Yeah,
you want to be grounded in something. So it's always your faith that takes you through all these things, and then reminds you that this isn't your final abode. This isn't where you're going to be forever. Yeah, and you just have to take things as they come, and you can't be resistant or recalcitrant towards events. You have to go through it and find whatever comforts you can, whatever.
Yeah, and definitely, and then what you can contribute in the time and the place you're in.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's why I do a lot of this online stuff now.
Right. What do you mean?
Well, what I mean is I did say this in a recent podcast. I said that because I move around a lot, it sort of dawned on me that I don't see myself as being settled in a community somewhere where I would be teaching a physical group of students or a physical group of people. Rather, I see myself mostly as doing stuff online, and then putting out maybe a blog post, an article, a podcast, translating videos, which I've been doing recently, or translating, publishing books, which is what I also do. And then that's available to anyone around the world. So in that case, I don't really know who I'm benefiting. I don't know who is listening. I don't know who is reading. I don't know who's benefiting. And then out of nowhere, sometimes I get an email, or I get a comment, or I get a phone call, and someone's just saying, thank you.
Oh, that's really nice.
I read your blog. I listened to this podcast. I benefited. I was going through a struggle or something, and then I read your blog post and something. So that's the beautiful thing about it. You just don't know. So that's what I think has sort of kept me grounded, because I don't want to be, because again, that when you're studying knowledge, you don't want to just be hoarding it and not sharing it anyway. You have to be disseminating it somehow.
Right. Yeah.
So that's one of the blessings of this age. There's plenty of fitting on the internet, but if you use it properly and you use the right tools properly, you can actually benefit a lot of people, and you don't even know where they are or who they are. And inshallah, it'll all be goodness, and I can see that in the next life. That's my hope. So alhamdulillah, here we are in Dhul Hijjah. We're now on the 8th for a few more.
So people are sitting in Mina right now.
Yep. This is the beginning of it.
Yep.
Tomorrow's Yom al-Arafah, and then Friday's going to be Eid. So should we talk about Ibrahim alayhi salam and where this all comes from? So.
Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting, because obviously first and foremost, if we look at this, it all comes from Sayyidina Ibrahim establishing the house, and so Dhul Hijjah really is a month of connecting to that Deen al-Hanif, the primordial religion that is there for man, and us reconnecting to our roots, and us trying to get back to the way of Ibrahim. But what's so interesting about Ibrahim is, we see him as like the patriarch of even the three main religions today, and that he called to this religion of oneness, and he was on the religion of fitrah, of the primordial way, the natural way. But what's interesting is that Ibrahim himself actually separated himself from his community initially. And he could look. What's really interesting is he could look beyond the environment that he was in and see there's something beyond this, whilst the rest of his people didn't have that ability. They were connected to the stars, they were connected to the sun.
Engaged in idol worship.
These Babylonian sort of beliefs. And he looked beyond that, and because of that, he was rejected by his people. It's like the typical Plato's cave, isn't it? He sees the reality, and he comes back and tries to inform his people of it, and they reject him and try to kill him.
Yeah.
And so he has to leave his land, he has to leave his people, taking his wife and his nephew. I think Lot was his nephew, was it, or his cousin?
Yeah.
And they end up, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala graces him with another land, but his journey still hasn't finished. And we see Ibrahim throughout his life, there's this separation, initiation into a new phase. I mean, his life's never at rest. You know, he's like Mahdi himself is constantly travelling, and he's the father of these two centres of the world, if we think about it, Jerusalem and of Mecca. Which is the Mecca being from an Islamic standpoint, we see it as the starting point of creation of the physical world. Yeah. And then, but our end being Jerusalem, where the Prophet ﷺ says it's the Manshar and the Mahshar. Yeah, it's the place where people will be gathered at the end of time, and they will be actually resurrected. Yeah,
because human history starts in Mecca and it finishes at Jerusalem.
I was just recently there, and that was really, when you're there, you really feel that this is some place that's really, of power and of relevance, and that you think they're on the same line near enough, aren't they? And so that they're very central to the map if you look at it. And so these are our centres, the epicenters, or our navels and our connection. And so, but we really connect to these places because of the people, not just because of the places, but what the people that were actually that took part in these places and were present there. So that's really important for us to see that we're basically going back to Ibrahim, and really trying to find how to get back to our source. But that requires travel, just like Sidna Ibrahim. And that's this is a theme that I always talk about, is that it's really important that youngsters learn the value of travel. Travelling for me really shaped me who I was. When I was a youngster, I didn't see any relevance in England. I didn't identify as an Englishman. I'll probably support Romania over England in the World Cup. And it wasn't until I travelled and really lived, saw how other people live. Living in Morocco, many of the people that I spent time with are very poor. And I used to go out into the countryside with these people, and where there's no electricity, we had to go to the well to get water. I remember one man that's with a razor blades, like killing a sparrow, and that was our lunch for the day. Wow. So for a young Englishman to suddenly just be living in this radically different environment, and then also finding relevance in Morocco. I was living in a city that breathed Islam. It's being founded by one of the Prophet ﷺ's descendants, Mullah Idris II. And then it's just like every corner has some historical significance, and it being one of the centres of Islamic civilization, that I just became obsessed with it. And what was interesting about that leaving your environment, like Sidna Ibrahim did, and me leaving England, what I was able to actually do was, when I came back to England, I was able to actually I actually developed a passion for finding the relevance in England, or the historical relevance in Keighley of all places. Yeah, Keighley was rated as one of the most boring towns of England. But it had the first spiritualist church in the whole of England, which is really interesting. It's got a temperance hall that is now Wetherspoons, and you could see this the Methodist churches that were were all over this town, and you saw that there was a real. You could tell that there was that in its history there were people that were passionate about change, and so I felt a connection to the place. And so Sidna Ibrahim had to leave his land in order to find relevance, and he found himself, and that's something that I really relate to. as well, is that I had to leave my environment, this separation, initiation into a new environment, but then you return and you're able to see things in a much broader.
You just raised something very, very interesting, because I think one of the things that happens to a lot of converts, especially quote unquote white converts, there's sort of like you become Islam and then you want to like totally forget where you come from. You sort of think like, oh, my background, that's just pure shirk, and I need to put that aside. I need to ignore it. But I think what I learned by going into history, I would say learning about Islam, learning about Islam's background, and then learning about the importance of lineage, learning about tradition, learning about the importance of having things that are passed on generation after generation, how crucial that is. Similar story to yours. I mean, that pushed me to start looking to my own lineage and taking interest in it.
Yeah.
Because I have an English side, I have a Russian side.
Yeah. I mean, you're a right mix, aren't you? It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's the UN flag on my passport. No. But also finding out that you want to see how far your lineage goes, who is in your lineage, who affects things. I have a lot of lawyers and theologians.
Because that makes up who you are, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, you can't just ignore and dismiss this stuff.
Yeah, and that's what you're talking about is really important here. Is that they talk about in the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell, which are based a lot of these things on these themes. Is this idea of atonement, that you have to make atonement with the Father.
Oh yeah.
Okay, which is really interesting, because this is very relevant for our day and age. Is because you have to recognize, you have to make peace with the.
That's something that Jordan Peterson talks about as well, because he used the story of Pinocchio. Like how does Pinocchio how does he sort of recover himself? And he recovers himself by going deep into the ocean and saving his father from the bottom of the ocean.
Oh right.
Right. It's that restoration.
Yeah, and we have to do that, and we like. As you said, when you become a Muslim, a lot of the times you use it to really try to separate yourself from your past. And I remember when I was in Qarawiyin once, one of my teachers turned to me and says, "Do you make dua for your parents?" And I say, "Why on earth would I do that? They're the bane of my life." But then I really reflected. Every summer that I went back and engaged with my parents, I realised I could see the emotional charge that they brought out in me, and I realised that the issues hadn't gone. They were still there, and like real spiritual. Like if I was on a spiritual tradition, it really should be remedying those situations. Those.
Absolutely.
And so, really, that was a real shift for me in my consciousness. From that point, I used my interaction with my family and my closest people to me as a barometer mark where I am at in my spirituality.
Yeah, because you can use that. You can use that as a spiritual test, because people seem to forget that if you're gonna train yourself physically, you're gonna lift weights or run a mile or something, that's putting a strain on your body. You put the strain on your body to strengthen your body. So we put the same with your soul. I mean, you put some strain on it.
Yeah. The family puts strain on emotions sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think it's true. It can be testing. It can be very, very testing.
But it's how that's how you grow, and that's all this journey of life. And so Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam sort of story that really encompasses all these themes about these movements and developments and growth in one's life, and so we see that if we think about even Dhul Hijjah, so we said that really I see is like if we can imagine the year as like 12 months, and it's really interesting. I was just looking at this now, and this is what's amazing about the Qur'an. You can just pull out things that you never even thought of before. Is that Surah Tawbah is chapter 9, and 9 symbolic. Why is 9 symbolic? Because it's like the end of the numbers. It's like a symbolic. Then you go to 0, and 0 is like returning to the divine, if you think about it. And that's why Arafat. If you think you're on the plains of Arafat on the 9th. And this is the moment where the sun's bearing down on you, and you feel like you're going to be annihilated. It's like symbolic of the Day of Judgment, where you think basically I'm going to be annihilated. Just end it before it ends. We can't bear this anymore. And so you're asking for forgiveness, and then the day closes at Maghrib. You're into the 10th now, and you rush back. Now you're moving slowly and gradually back to the Kaaba. Which is symbolic of you returning back to Allah. And Surah Tawbah's 9. And so it's like repentance at 9. Okay. And also verse 36 is إن عدة الشهور عند الله 12 في كتاب الله. 36 divided by 4, 9.
Yeah.
So we've got 4, and the year is divided into 4 parts.
Right.
So we've got the first...
The 4 seasons, you mean?
It's 4 seasons. So you've got Muharram, Rabi' al-Safar, and the Rabi' al-Awwal being the beginning.
The spring.
The spring, when things are born. Easter, like if you think about it, the spring coming in, the birth of the lambs, the Easter. You see the symbolism within the Easter egg, the birth, the resurrection, all these sorts of things. And so we see that stage as like a beginning, and that's why you'll see that people subconsciously see it as a rebirth, because they make New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
They feel like they've got an opportunity to sort of change.
Yeah, and they last like 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, no, why is that? That's interesting, I feel, because they haven't really let go of the past. Why they feel this deep within themselves. They feel there is a change that needs to take place, but they're still holding on to the old identity. And you've got to let go completely of the old identity in order for you to make those palpable changes. But anyway, so we move into that first stage, and that's symbolic of the infancy. And then we move into the second phase, which is summer, the heat.
Yeah.
So when you're youth, when you've got all that energy, and that's really important. We see that Ibrahim in Surah, is it Safat, isn't it?
Yeah.
فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ سَعْيًا. So when Ismail, peace be upon him, reached the stage now where it's really interesting. I just thought about this now. لَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ, that preposition ma'a is really interesting. Like when the sa'i, when he reached that with him, that stage of sa'i, which is where you can actually do something with impetus. And so we see in Surah Yasin, doesn't it? وَجَاءَ مِنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ رَجُلٌ يَسْعَى. So a man came from the furthest parts of the town, rushing. And so you've got this energy now, and this is when Ismail, when he's reached his stage, it's ordered that his father sacrifice him.
Yeah, when he's become useful and beneficial to his father.
Yeah, and it's like now he's moved. Now that he can stand on his own 2 feet, he's at a stage now where he's got to move from childhood to manhood. And it's interesting that after that, really, we don't really hear about Hajj, which is interesting as well, because it's like he's left the mother now, the place of comfort, the place of protection, and now the father comes into the picture, which is a symbolic of majesty and power, and the unknown, and the source, because obviously we come from the father. And so he's taking. So I see this symbolic really as of Ibrahim taking his own soul, taking himself, and you having to go through that death. So this separation, initiation, return, separation from the womb, initiation into the new world, then return back to the mother, holding onto the breast and being comforted by the mother. And then we have the next stage where they're moving into puberty now, and they can assert themselves. And so that's another separation, initiation, and return. So Ibrahim comes in to take him from that. Now the father takes over, the majesty, and he takes him. And throughout that, he's got misgivings, isn't it? We see the symbolism in the throwing of the pebbles, the casting of the pebbles, is that this is when you're going from separation to initiation to return, you're always having misgivings. Is this really the right thing to do? Like the child being taken to school for the first day, the mother thinking, my baby, I don't want him to suffer. Maybe he should stay at home. But really, if she thought about it, she's doing him a disservice by showing kindness. And he has to be given over now.
Yeah, you can't benefit someone by protecting them. You can benefit. You only benefit someone by making them stronger. You have to give them the tools to deal with situations as when they come. Because it's like you said, you can do it. Your child might say like, oh, I don't feel well, I want to stay home. But then it's okay. You do it for one day. Well, you do that for a second day and a third day and a fourth day. No, you have to eventually. As I said, let go of the apron strings and push them into the world and make sure they can see if they can swim or sink, and hopefully they can swim. Make sure they can swim. Give them that ability.
And all this is symbolic in the Hajj rites themselves. So we see that. So it's we have that's the part of the story. Him coming to Mecca, leaving his mother. Leaving the mother and leaving the child together. and then separating from them, and he's basically staying with the mother. Now him coming in and taking over, and we don't really hear about Hajj there. It's this next stage, this next initiation. And then obviously he's willing to give up that. He's giving up the child. He's willing, and now he moves into manhood. Now the two of them complement one another now, and they're able to actually build the house.
Yeah.
And so that's the second stage, and then we move into the third stage, which is autumn, which is now we're talking Rajab being the first month.
Yeah.
And the Rajab was traditionally one of the sacred months.
Yeah.
Where
the 4 sacred months. Yeah.
Where it's traditionally the Arabs used to perform Umrah. And so it's like you've gone past your half
summer. Yeah.
You've gone past the summer. You're now halfway through your life, and you're now moving to back to return.
Yeah.
So it's separation. You come through. You're really focusing on what you can achieve in the spring and the summer of your life.
Yeah.
But now, when you hit midlife, and you realise you're moving back. Now you've got to focus on where you're going, and so it's moving back to the house at Rajab. Okay. And then the Rajab ends as we've got Rajab, then we've got Jumad al-Ula.
Rajab and Sha'ban.
Rajab, sorry, yeah. Right now, this is really because the Prophet ﷺ, obviously, it's narrated that he used to make that dua.
11 Ramadan.
Yeah,
from this point onwards.
Rajab and Sha'ban, give us blessing in the Rajab and Sha'ban, enable us to
reach Ramadan.
So this is consciousness with the moons again, and we can talk about these the phases of the moon, so relevant and symbolic. Is that they're moving in, enable me to live to actually live to see that time, because Ramadan is the last stage now of the
autumn
like adulthood, and you realizing now I'm going into old age, and so Ramadan is a time to let go, detox yourself from the past, because now you have to prepare yourself for facing your ultimate end. And so then we see you move in from Ramadan, and I call Ramadan is like the month of the Prophet ﷺ, because the focus is on the Qur'an. The focus is on the relevance of the Qur'an, and the focus is on like that time in the cave of Hira, when the Prophet ﷺ completely cut off all distractions, and focus purely on connecting to the book. And then you're moving into the next month. You go into the months of Hajj.
Yeah.
Shawwal is when someone could actually go into a state of ihram.
Yeah.
To travel towards
Mecca.
And so now you know where your end's coming. And so you go into Shawwal. You go into Dhul Qa'dah, another of the sacred months. Now you're into Dhul Hijjah.
Yeah.
And so Dhul Hijjah is like the last part, and you realise it's all coming to an end. And so I need to go back to Allah, back to the house. This is sort of my origin, where it's said, obviously, in the black stone, it was placed, that pledge we made. Am I not your Lord? And they said, Bala, and that was put. So it's as if you're going back to your Lord in order to reconnect. And that's I found that, these themes of that I think are really lost in the modern world a lot of the time, is this idea of pledging allegiance, because in Morocco, as you well know, the Eid al-Kabir, the major Eid, is a time when all the king's subjects come and affirm their bay'ah, their pledge to the king. And you'll see them all come forward and kissing his hand.
Yeah.
And it said, I think Ibn Abbas, it was related that he said when the black stone is like the right hand of God, in terms of what does that mean? You're coming and you're kissing and reaffirming your pledges, because it's the end. And notice, look, the king's doing it right at the end of the year. Yeah. Because it's a symbolic of I'm coming back to the king. Yeah. It's a death, but at the same time it's a rebirth. Yeah. It's move to another stage. And so this is the whole concept of the Hajj itself. Is that we're coming to a point of death, and then people leave Dhul Hijjah into Muharram, the last of the sacred months, which is that rebirth.
Yeah, it's this first month of the next year.
Yeah. And so the year is a cycle of separation, initiation, return, of life to death. Yeah. And then a return back to where you originally were from, which is nothingness. Yeah. Which is the zero, if you think about it. So there's a lot of reflection there, and for people in these months, in this particular day, in these particular days.
Because the thing also as well about because the story of Ibrahim and Ismail, the fact that again what we do on Eid al-Adha, the sacrifice. But maybe I'll talk about that next, because obviously Arafah is before us.
Well, another thing that Mahdi, you just reminded me, is that in a Muslim country, we saw this in Morocco, people would generally buy their sheep around the 1st of Dhul Hijjah.
Yeah.
And so you're bringing life into your home, and you've seen it. The sheep are actually in the house.
Yeah,
and
playing with the kids.
Yeah,
Poor kids.
And the sheep's generally looked after.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's accepting this new thing into your life that's symbolic of yourself, your nafs.
Yeah.
And then you keep it up until the 10th, which is the new symbolic of you've been forgiven. You know, the 9th has ended, rebirth. So you take a life at rebirth, and so when that animal's sacrificed, and when you've taken care of that animal, and then you really have to take its life. I mean, it's so different to eating meat from the supermarket. You've taken that life. You really become conscious of your own mortality.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when I slaughtered, I remember that year. I still remember old Mehdi knocked out.
Yeah.
But that happened to me the first time.
Yeah.
When you first see an animal get slaughtered, your stomach just goes.
Yeah.
And I remember us up on the roof, wasn't it? With Sheikh Tanjawi.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
There's Mehdi with his turban, and before we know it, the turban's on the ground.
You're making it up. No, I think I managed to hold still until until they opened up the intestines and all the stuff came out. I think that's where I
let it go.
Yeah, that's where I could no longer quote unquote stomach it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time I saw that, it's like I felt sick.
Yeah.
But that's really important for us to be conscious of.
Well, that's a perfect example, I think, of just stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
I mean, because we like to think like, I only want to see the animal when it's dead on my plate, and
that's a death to how you see life. You know, when you take the life of something else, it's like it's a death to how you see life. By when you're having to take life, and then so you've moved in now to the 10th where you take that life. And you realise, and then obviously you share that with people. So from death comes life. Yeah. Okay, and we eat from that meat. Yeah. And really interesting. It just come to my mind now. The first thing we eat is the liver, isn't it?
That's liver. Yeah.
In Morocco, what's so unique about Morocco? I've only seen it in Morocco. I don't know about Saudi.
Yeah.
Is that they have this whole tradition of how's it cooked, what's eaten first. Do they do that in Saudi?
I haven't been around really. I think when you're over there, everything's sort of overshadowed by the Hajj itself.
Oh, right.
That seems to just completely overshadow events. I haven't seen much of that, and I haven't always been there at that time of year.
Okay.
As you can tell.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But I have witnessed a lot of Moroccan slaughters. I mean, and one of the last times when I was there, I actually got together with a few other Muslim brothers, and we sacrificed a calf.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you actually got some pictures somewhere I can show you. It was massive, and mashallah, and that was quite. Again, it was you can't help it because it was a beautiful creature. You actually feel an attachment to it, and then you slaughter it, and you do that because this is something that is pleasing to Allah, and it's a blessing. It's something that and I think again that goes back to. This whole fact about Ibrahim alayhi salam. I was reading this earlier today in Imam Ahmad Zuhaydi's tafsir about those ayats in Surah Al-Safat from ayahs 102 onwards, the story of Ibrahim and Ismail, the fact that the key here is that simple obedience to Allah. How Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah showers so many blessings upon him because he has that simple obedience.
Well, Islam, that's submission.
That absolute submission. There's no so the fact that he's commanded to take his son and slaughter him, and then he does so without any hesitation, without any wavering.
Do you know what I find really interesting, just to stop you there, sorry, is that people usually talk about how Ibrahim basically had no hesitation. Yeah. But I think they've missed the point, because Ibrahim, I think, did have hesitation in that he asked his son first and foremost, and then Shaitan came to him to whisper to him. Okay, and so I believe he was going through some real turmoil inside, but the thing is that didn't stop him outwardly submission. And this is a really important point, is that wilaya, like being close to Allah, is not that you're not going through the emotional turmoil. Because we have this idea of that if I'm close to Allah, I'm like floating on a cloud.
No.
Not affected by the currents of life and experience. But he was going through the turmoil, but that didn't stop him doing what he had to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's Islam.
Yeah.
It's because submission has to be active.
Yeah.
And so he's actively submitting despite what's going on, and I think that's a really important thing. But when sometimes I hear in these sermons, it's as if they paint this picture of this, he was completely connected to Allah, and there was no sort of hesitation whatsoever. But really, I believe there was some turmoil going on.
Well, because I'm saying like Imam Sha'rawi in his tafsir on that point, he says obviously you have to imagine it's a huge test because this is the son that he waited for his whole life.
Yeah.
Came to him in old age, and then he just reached the age where he'd become useful. He's no longer dependent. He's now independent. He can help him with.
Well, the father can actually step in and play a role, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just at that point where the father and son can actually properly bond and do things together. And this is why Imam Wahb he said that this is like he said asam ma yujud, in terms of like this is the most difficult thing that exists for a father to do, because a father loves his son more than himself. That's his progeny. That's his legacy. Why would you want to get rid of that? Why would you even be able to countenance that? But also I think another gleaning to take from that, the fact that he asked Ismail that question, I was reading this earlier today, is that he's treating him like an adult. So he's saying in front of the Torah, like, what do you think?
Yeah.
He's not just yanking him by the shoulder.
Yeah, which is really important for us to learn today in parenting, isn't it?
Yeah, because, I've mentioned this before somewhere, I think, maybe on one of my podcasts, but the fact that this whole thing about, adolescence itself is just a made-up construct. It doesn't exist. Like, the word teenager doesn't exist in the English language prior to 1937. You've got teenaged. And when people used it before that, teenage already was like saying someone's in their 20s, someone's in their 30s. There's no idea of this psychological transitional phase between childhood and adulthood. It's just childhood, adulthood. It just happens all in one go. It's basic rule of thumb I tell people is if you can produce a child, you're not a child. It's that basic. So he's an adult, and if you want your children to act like adults, you have to treat them like adults. To treat them like adults, you have to give them responsibilities.
Give them the tools to do.
Yeah, give them the tools to do. And one of the biggest things, my key thing of responsibilities is to let them give suggestions. You ask them, like, your opinion, what do you think about this? What do you think we should do?
Yeah, very interesting.
And then when they have to give that opinion or that suggestion, they own that. Now you're responsible for that. So we're going to follow your suggestion and we're going to do this. And if it doesn't work out, it's on your head. Like, okay.
And also in this situation is that this concerns his child and affects his well-being.
Yes.
So I need to consult him.
Yeah,
he's not my object.
Yeah.
Which
he's
is
not my property, which is how a lot of I want to say it. Certain people see their children that way. Like
Yeah. And so another thing I thought was really interesting is this theme of Hajj. So we move into the first 10. Yeah. And a lot of the time I feel the community really struggle to see the relevance of Eid al-Kabir, the main Eid or major Eid. Why? Because Ramadan, we're all engaged in the act together.
Yeah.
Okay, so we see what we're celebrating. But a lot of the time, because we're not there performing the Hajj itself, we don't see how it's relevant. But what's really interesting, I think, is that first of all, we know most of us know someone who's going to perform the Hajj. Okay, in our community.
Yeah.
Generally in Bradford, I think there's someone there at the moment. In Mecca or Mina now.
Someone's all there is making dua for us. Someone's always there.
Well, I see them as like ambassadors.
Yeah.
So it's as if now that concept of going to repledge your allegiance to the king, we can't all do that, and Allah specifies certain people to represent us.
Yeah, there's like delegations that go every year,
and they've been honoured. Those people being drawn out the hat, or if you wish to say, and in Muslim countries they are literally drawn out the hat.
Yeah, Morocco has that system.
You can't just go. So we understand that those people are going out to represent us on our behalf, and so we are conscious of them being there because it's not just about their well-being; it's about our well-being as well. And so in those first 10 days, how do we connect to them? And I find this fascinating because Dr. Daniel Siegel, who's a neurologist, he talks about these this importance for well-being, to feel an interconnection with others, and so he does this meditation where he takes people through the 5 senses, being aware of each sense, then moving into the 6th sense. The 6th sense being the sensations, the internal sensations of temperature, of weight, of the tingling sensations, flow, body, energy flow through the body, and then he moves into the third one he moves into is the observation of the mind, being aware of the mechanics of the mind and how thoughts come in and out of consciousness, and then from there he moves into interconnectedness. So you basically feel the person who's in the room next to you, and if there's and then the person who's in the next room, and then the person who's in someone in the next city, and so he says that this interconnectedness is really important to the sense of well-being of a person. So what we're doing, we're not there, but how are we interconnecting with them? We're connecting through fasting. So we are fasting, just like in Ramadan we were connected through fasting. They majority of them won't be fasting, but we're conscious of them because we're fasting. In obviously the act of, if you're going to slaughter your animal, not cutting your hair, being recommended not to cut the hair and not to cut the nails. So it's as if you're in a semi-state of ihram with them, conscious of them. And then obviously before sacrificing, then we be conscious that they are moving out now from Mina to Arafat. Obviously, I don't know in the Shafi'i school, but in the Hanafis they start the takbirat on the Fajr of the 9th.
Yeah, I think that's the stuff, right?
Yeah, is it the same?
Yeah.
And so you have this sense, they're in Mina now, they're contemplating and meditating over what...
Well, actually, I'll check that. I'm pretty sure it's Fajr in Arafat. Don't want to get me wrong on this. I'll check.
So they are in Mina contemplating now, what are they going to ask forgiveness? This magnanimous day. This is the time where you have to be in a specific place. There has to be people. And not that this is binding on Allah, but out of His favour He's required that we be in a specific place, at a specific time, at a specific hour there, in order to receive the ultimate forgiveness of the year, which is coming right at the end of our lives. I find that fascinating. And so that's why now we know that they're heading out to Arafat to take part in the act. We start the takbirat after the prayer. So we feel that interconnectedness. How great is Allah that He has given us this opportunity to. And that's forgiveness I see here. Forgiveness is that your past doesn't necessarily hold you back. Allah can forgive the past, so you can have a new beginning, and you're not tied by your past in that it will take it's forever a burden on your back. Rather, Allah gives opportunities throughout the year, throughout the day, in order to release that burden, and the ultimate manifestation of that for the year is Hajj. Wow. And so we be conscious and connected with them when we're doing that. And so then in the 10th, to celebrate that they've achieved that, and I like to see it as when they're standing at Arafat from Dhuhr up to Maghrib asking forgiveness, which is not an easy feat if you think about it. They're standing in the heat, especially this year. They're standing there in the heat, just giving it, asking Allah for a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah says to the angels, do you see my servants have come dishevelled from distant lands? What do you think I'm going to do with these people? And then He forgives them. So I like to see the forgiveness as like this, like you can imagine like a UFO floats over and this big beam comes down. And it just goes. And then it has a ripple effect, like in the movies where the beam hits, it goes and resonates, and that forgiveness sort of resonates throughout the whole of the world because the people were there, and we feel that. And so we go out on the 10th to celebrate that we've been forgiven. It's recommended to feel the night of the 9th. The 10th night, i.e. this Thursday night with worship, and then to go out with the whole community as a collective to celebrate that we've been forgiven, and then to slaughter as if this is the end, and that we've been forgiven. So we're going to kill that our conception of who we were as who we identified with ourselves, in order to open up to a greater possibilities and a greater expansion of consciousness and awareness of who we are.
I just double check. I did check it up. It is Friday. It is the Fajr on Yom Arafah. Yeah. So the Yom Arafah as well, because this is something I mentioned to you before, because I was doing a khutbah on this last week. This idea of, again, things coming back full circle in this cycle. So because the Yom Arafah, when the Prophet ﷺ did his one Hajj, and he made the Hajj his khutbah al-wida, his final farewell sermon. His farewell sermon. And there's that one line where he says in his Zamanik Isnadara Kahaydi Yom Khulqa Samawati wal Ard, that time has now come back full circle, the way it was Allah created the heavens and the earth. And now,
and that hayat, that's a really interesting word to use, isn't it, as well?
Its structure, its form, the way it was. And obviously, looking at in the basic commentary of this, like the initial commentary would say that the calendar has been fixed now, because the idol worshippers in Mecca would change. That sometimes they have a 13-year calendar or a 12-month calendar. They'd move Hajj around, they move Umrah around, they move all these things.
Until I think they were completely oblivious really to when Hajj was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They were doing it in the wrong time. Is that correct?
Yeah, because it was just moving it. Yeah. So the Prophet ﷺ, what he's doing with that Hajj is he's now bringing everything back full circle, and now Hajj is where it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be on these days. Arafah, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, the Eid is on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. Everything's been restored in that sense, but then you could expand it further. You can look at the life of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how now he's coming back to Mecca. He's grown. That's where he's from. And one of the amazing things about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is like one hadith of his where he says to the companions, he says, "Ana Arabukum." I'm the most Arab of you, because that's his lineage, that's his homeland, going all the way back to Ismail alayhi salam. That's his lineage, going back thousands of years. He's been forced out of there for the sake of his faith, and he spends those years in Medina, and now he's back, and he's the restoration. This is his life is being restored. He's come back home. His message is complete, because it's on that same day that Allah reveals the ayah, Al-Yawma Akmaltu Lakum Dinakum, Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah 3, which is the last ayah revealed in terms of legislation. The first ayah, because there's loads of rulings in there about foods, and that's the last ayah that's revealed in terms of halal wa haram, Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah 3. And then you can take it further, and you can look at the fact that this is the fulfillment of the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam. It's back to Ibrahim and Ismail. When one looks at Surah Al-Baqarah, ayat 127 onwards, there's the Ibrahim and Ismail where they build the Kaaba, and one of the duas they make is Allahumma arina manasikana, Allah show us our manasik. And manasik, the rites of Hajj, that includes everything. That includes not just sa'i and tawaf, it also includes the ihram, and the ihram starts where? It's then the miqat. And none of that stuff actually comes into effect in their lifetime. The full effect of that is with this one. With the Prophet ﷺ. So he's the culmination of that, the manifestation of that. And that's why 2 ayat later, that's why they make dua. They say, Allah ibath fihim rasulun minhum, raise up a prophet from them, who will teach them and purify them and so forth. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he comes on the Yom al-Arafah, he stands up, and when he makes that line, this is so profound, because it's saying now we come back full circle. Now humanity's returned to the way of Ibrahim alayhi salam. All that is restored. I am the culmination of that dua. I am that messenger. You could take it further, even go back to Adam alayhi salam, because Adam alayhi salam, this is where they him and Hawa meet in this area. This is where where after
recognition, isn't it? So
recognition, because the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he also said in the hadith in Tirmidhi that's sahih, he said, "Ana awwal anbiya'i fil khalq wa akhiruhum mursal." I'm the first prophet created and the last one sent. So his coming and fulfillment of his message is a full circle. It brings everything full circle back to the beginning of humanity itself.
And Arafat is that, like, obviously the word, the linguistical play is that you come back to a recognition of who you are. Yeah. And then once you can do that, then you can go into the divine presence. And so that's why even after Arafat, we head back then to Mecca to be reunited with the Kaaba again. The Hajj rites are all constantly separation, initiation, and return again.
SubhanAllah. And so much of it is just, again, it's this just a culmination, because I think again we make these mistakes as Muslims in the Anglosphere. We make this mistake where we try to give like a logical reason behind everything we do, and like Hajj is just pure.
That's what's very interesting.
Just pure obedience.
Sometimes we can't find it seems like, why am I throwing these pebbles up these stones?
Why am I throwing pebbles here? Why am I doing this? It's like, just simply because Allah told you to. We make that mistake with fasting. People say, like, why do you fast? It's like, you really should tell because Allah said so.
I was even reflecting about today about language. If you think about language has rules, but a lot of the time there's irregularities in the rules. And that's a bit like life. We have to have a map.
Yeah.
Because grammar's really, it's artificial if you think about it.
Yeah.
Grammar is something imposed on the language. The language doesn't, we're just seeing regularity, we're seeing some sort of regularity in the language.
Yeah.
But you will always have irregularities within there as well. And that's like life.
Yeah.
And so the Hajj is sort of showing you that, that some of this is going to be beyond you.
Yeah, it's like Imam Ghazali has a whole section on that in his book, Al-Munqidh min al-Dalal. Like he explains these points, how like sometimes with certain rulings, you can understand the benefit of it. I mean, especially with like prohibitions, you can understand, okay, why alcohol is prohibited. You can understand pork. You can understand these things, but like, why is Maghrib 3 rak'at? Why is Isha 4? Like, there's nothing to it. But the point about just simple obedience, like with fasting, like you can't say, for example, with fasting, you don't want to say that, we want to know how poor people feel, or we want to know like these are just hikam. They're like they're wisdoms, but it's not the same as like an actual illah. It's not the same as an actual reason. The fact is, Allah commanded it. Allah commanded it. There's something else I want to mention, which just before I'm getting off track, but back to the story of Ibrahim and Ismail. One thing that really struck out to me was when Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he says to his son, when he says, "Fandur mada tara," what do you think about the situation? And then he says, "Inshallah, you will find me to be patient."
Right.
And something I've been discussing with one of my teachers a lot recently is this point where sometimes you might hear a story about someone, like you might hear about a Muslim who was put in a trying situation. They were put in a situation where they were tempted, and they fell into the temptation. Maybe it was fornication, maybe it was corruption, something like this. And sometimes as Muslims, a lot of Muslims, we might think, "Oh, I would never do that. If I was in that situation, I would say no. I would get up and walk out."
Yeah, and you probably think like, "What bad person?"
Yeah, you might look down on the person, but like you're saying that, but you've never actually been in that situation. So how do you know how you would react if you've never actually been in that situation where you've been tempted in a horrible way? How can you make that claim? You're better off saying, "Na'udhu billah." May Allah protect me from that situation. And Ismail alayhi salam, he shows that same humility. He doesn't say like, "I'll be patient." He says, "Inshallah, if Allah so wills, I will be patient."
Yeah, I think in the modern world we have this obsession with how can I trust you? But the reality is you can't trust me. I don't even trust myself. if you put a Ben and Jerry's in front of me, and I had Adamsy, I'm only going to have ice cream once a month, but then suddenly I'm only 3 days past my after my tub of Ben and Jerry's. I don't know if I can trust myself.
Yeah. No, but if you've been Ben and Jerry's in front of me, there's no way I'll be touching it.
It's all here.
No. No, but that's the thing though. There has to be that sort of humility, because I always find that from personal experience that if you ever make that sort of claim before Allah, like you sort of say like, "Oh, I would never do that."
Yeah, I said I'd never come back to England. I would never work in the mosque, and I never marry a Pakistani, and I've achieved all three.
MashaAllah.
Nothing against Pakistanis. I love you guys.
Yeah. Remind me to give you a prize afterwards. So yeah, I found that experience. Yeah, if you sort of say to something, if you sort of make that sort of claim to yourself, like, "Yes, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm not doing it," Allah will send a test your way. Like that claim will be tested. So you have to be careful about that, about saying like, "Oh yeah, I would never do that if I was in that situation." And then temptation comes, you fall for it, you fail the test.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Subhanallah. So what else were we going to talk about with Ibrahim and Ismail? Any final points?
I mean, one thing I forgot to mention was also the significance of the phases of the moon here, because there again, if you think about it, look, people head out to Hajj, let's say on the 10th of the 1st of Dhul Hijjah. It's like, first of all, there's before it. I was going to ask, when the moon in the last few days of the month before, when's it completely dark? When's the waning of the moon completely?
It's like right. It's around. It disappears around the 27th and 28th. That's the thing. It disappears because, in Surah Yunus, Ayah 5, Allah talks about the manazil. Yeah. Right. The manazil. These sort of what we call these lunar houses. So it does. It wanes and wanes and wanes.
Yeah.
And then it just vanishes for 1 or 2 days, and then it appears again as a thin sliver.
And so there's this idea. At that point in your life, you're at a time of like unsurety, of insurity about what's coming, and then suddenly you get that rebirth. So there's again separation, initiation, return, and death. to one way of looking at life, a rebirth of a new way. And so people will now move out onto the Hajj, and then that's slowly creeping up, that new realization. And then it's what's really interesting is that then when we get the true clarity is on the 13th, and the 13th is the last day of the Hajj. So now that we've got the full moon, which is a symbolic of new clarity within, and
new wholeness.
New wholeness. Now we can head back.
Yeah.
Okay, and so people are heading back after the 13th. We've got 14th and 15th of full wholeness. That's like the middle of our age. And now we're going back, and then we're going to get a waning even of that life. And then we come back into Muharram. We're back in with we return back to our lands,
back to our families, and back to what.
And even that ends that, and there's a restarting with Muharram. And so these are really important.
Because the point is you come back to your family, but you come back as. I think it's a very Ghazalian theme. I was actually I was talking about this with a brother of mine who's very close to me. We were talking about, because that Dr. Jordan Peterson, he made a video about he's recommending to millennials like books that you should read, like Aldous Huxley and George Orwell and Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. But his point is very interesting. When he said these are the kind of books that will just break you apart and then rebuild you. And then you build back to something, because we all have, that's the point, we all have that sort of baggage that we're not aware of. We have all kinds of emotional and psychological baggage, and you have to destroy that. You have to destroy that, and then you have to and then only after you've destroyed that can you actually rebuild yourself as something much stronger and much more wholesome and much more complete.
That's a manifestation of La ilaha illallah. If you think about it, you have to break yourself before you can realize your true being.
Yeah, you have to get rid of that sort of baggage. All the idols and the stuff, because it's interesting. I think we talked about this before. I remember like the story of Musa alayhi salam and the Bani Israel, like the Bani Israel when they're spared from Fir'aun, who's meant to be this, he's that outward physical manifestation of oppression. But as soon as they cross the Red Sea, or they cross the sea at the other side, they ask Musa for an idol. Right, so which shows there's no benefit of getting rid of like an external threat or external enemy unless you've got rid of.
They were still enslaved internally.
Yeah, there's a lot of idolatry inside them that hasn't been gotten rid of.
No, definitely.
So the Hajj, I was just saying, so the Hajj has that case of where you are. I think this is symbolic as well in the especially when the ihram and the restrictions that are put upon you it's sort of like a situation where you are broken.
Yeah, which is interesting. I just thought about this. Is like if you think about old age, that's these impositions come upon you, isn't it? They're imposed on you. I'm not as strong as I used to be. Your body stops working on you, so you're restricted because you're coming now. There's this constriction that's happening upon you because you're going off into a you got to let go of the body in order to come into a new consciousness, a new awareness.
Because you can't always hang on to things.
Because that's the problem.
It's like, and again, like zakat is the same thing. Like zakat, it's like if you don't pay that zakat and let go of that wealth,
it constricts you. Your
wealth's not going to grow.
Yeah.
Because the zakat means grow. The fact that you pay that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It manifests as a serpent in the grave, isn't it? Your wealth. Then it's as if it's constricting and holding you back and choking you.
Yeah.
Because you've not let go. And so, the question people often ask is like, how do I know my Hajj is accepted? And we talk about, obviously, whoever performs the Hajj and doesn't utter obscenities and doesn't engage in sexual relations, then he goes back as if the day his mother gave birth to him. I think it's those subtle shifts in your consciousness and your ability now to do things that you never were able to do and appreciate those things.
And there's certain sins that you leave off now. Very much easier to leave off.
Yeah, because the problem is a lot of people, they have this idea of all or nothing. So they say, I've come back from Hajj, I've got to pay. This is what stops people doing Hajj in the first place.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm up to suddenly becoming Mr. Pious.
Yeah.
And they don't realise like this is a mistake.
Yeah.
Because in the reality, those changes are very the most profound changes are something that's very incremental and gradual. And so when we come
two steps forward, one step back, really.
Yeah. And so when we come back from Hajj, just to think after a month or two, how have things changed?
Yeah.
It could be a shift in perception. It could be a shift in your character. It could be a change in your character and how you interact with people. It could be something so subtle that's a rebirth, that's a new life for you. And so people shouldn't get so beaten up and think they've got to suddenly become Supermen.
Yeah.
Now they're back from Hajj.
It's like a Clark Kent Superman type of thing. Like,
Yeah.
that actually puts a lot of people off. I've noticed that some people say like, oh, I can't do Hajj because when I come back, I have to be, right. I have to be sorted.
And I can't pray like even if you think about daily like our daily obligations. I'm not ready for prayer yet. Like as if suddenly I've got to start having some hair growth on my face now that I'm going to start praying. But these things happen gradually, and we have an ideal that we want to achieve. But we've got to realise that it's that path of just working towards something that's what Allah rewards us for. It's not the result, and this is a thing that our religion teaches us, that it's about you putting the effort in and the intention of having a goal.
Yeah, but it's also I think people seem to fail to forget that they don't really get what Allah. I mean, Allah wants that relationship with you. So it's like people you're not dealing with an employer. You're not dealing with a mafia don. It's not about offering. I have to give this many good deeds, and I have to be the 51% good Muslim, and I have to. Allah created your deeds anyway. That's not going to help you. And about the sacrifice again, like Allah, like in Surah Al-Hajj, the Hajj itself, Allah talks about. Ayah 36, I believe it is. 3 and 6, 9.
Allahu Akbar.
Maybe there's something interesting there. It's Ayahs 36 and 37. But Allah talks about Allah says that the blood and the flesh don't reach him, but it's the taqwa. It's the taqwa from you. So you're putting that effort in. So I mean, I've taught this point in a few of my classes when I've taught fiqh classes before, and you have to hammer into people. You say like, okay, Allah doesn't want your deeds. He doesn't need your deeds. He created those. He doesn't need your sacrifices. He doesn't need that. He doesn't. What does Allah actually want? And people get all stumped like, oh, I don't know. It's like, well, what does He want? He wants you. You silly, like go into that relationship with him. It doesn't matter how.
And He's with you now.
Yeah,
He's not some distant. You've got to achieve all these things before I get Allah.
Yeah, just go for it. And that's the thing. That as disheveled or as beaten or as bruised as you are, Allah wants you, and that's one of the beautiful things about Ramadan. Because there's that ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, in the ayat of fasting, right in the middle of the ayat of fasting, Allah says, and if my slaves ask you about me, I am near. And that's a constant state. Allah is near. You just call on Him. There's also when the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he went to Medina and he talked to the Jews about their Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement ceremonies, and they talk about how our priest, and he goes behind the curtain and blah 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 this, and he talks directly to the Lord and so forth. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his response was, well, for us, the Muslim, he raises his hands, he says Allahu Akbar, and he's in the direct presence of his Lord. So everyone has that avenue. You don't have to, go through like some preparatory phase to have a relationship with Allah. Start now. Start with your own way. You're ready now. Allah's calling on you now.
Yeah.
Don't be all I don't know what the word is, but don't be fluffy about it. I guess I would say just do it. I mean, that's entering that relationship. Allah knows best. Allah knows every success. So we've done an hour now. Is there any other?
I mean, we could go on for ages about this.
We could.
I mean, I'm hoping that this has been relevant for people in trying to sort of conceptualise the symbols that are hold within these days, and to bring some sort of relevance to it in their lives, and how why this is the most important day of the year. Really, these first, obviously, in the Qur'an, we have Allah swearing by these days, and most of the scholars say these are actually greater than the last 10 days of Ramadan. Yeah, and it's really important. There's another point of focus, reflection, is that they're the first 10 days of the month, and they're the days that more outweigh the nights. Yeah. Whilst Ramadan, it's the last 10, and they are in darkness. It's the time of the darkness where you engage in worship. Whilst and then another thing is that the Laylatul Qadr is hidden in those days, whilst in Dhul Hijjah the special day is not hidden. Yom al-Arafah, it's clear. Yeah. So it's a time of clarity, because if you think about it, a time of death, it's all pretty much clear for people. Yeah. It's right before your eyes now, and you can't deny it. SubhanAllah. So I think like you said, we could go on and on and on and get more insight into this. But I think this has been, inshallah, beneficial. I don't think there's anything else I want to say of the story of Surah Al-Safat.
Yeah. But also, I think there's one thing I do remember the Surah Al-Safat and then those ayat from 102 onwards. The fact that Ibrahim alayhi salam, the fact that he eventually shows that resolve to sacrifice Ismail alayhi salam, and then Allah rewards him. Allah spares him from having to sacrifice his son. He gets to keep his son. He's given a ram as well, and then he's given another son on top of that. Allah said, "Wabashirnahu bi-Ishaq." Right? I mean, there's so much reward that comes out of that afterwards. But I remember Imam Sha'rawi in his tafsir, the key point is for them maslama, like when they submitted, because I think it's so many times that when we're in a tribulation, there's some sort of test, and we show resistance to it.
Oh yeah, that's a big.
We have that thing where we say
suffering comes from resistance.
We say like, oh, it shouldn't be happening. This is just wrong. I shouldn't be in this situation, and we get angry and we start harassing people and things like this. And then sometimes you have to realize that it's beyond your control. I mean, in some case in a test, there's maybe someone or something that can help you. But when it's out of your control, what are you supposed to do? I mean, if you're just going to resist and say this is wrong and huff and puff, you're just making the situation worse for yourself.
I think that's a sign of these times is that people are always saying, well, if God does exist, then why is all this suffering? But sometimes we have to just submit to the majesty that's manifest in creation. And when we submit to it and realise, well, hang on a minute, there's a higher consciousness that knows a lot better than we do. Then the wisdom and understanding of why that, you have to go through that experience of the suffering. You have of the struggle and the situations where you're not in control and submit to them rather than just saying this is not fair. And we're very much in an infantile stage. We've not really grown out,
and we sort of think that by expressing frustration that'll change things, right? Like someone will see how angry we are and it'll change. It's not. It is. It's completely juvenile. Completely juvenile. But it's like but the point, like Imam Sha'rawi always said, he says, is when they submitted and said, we'll just do it because Allah said it. Then the test is lifted. So that's
and the gift is given.
The gift is given.
Which is Joseph Campbell talks about. That's the boon. When you've gone past the threshold, you come back with a gift that you're able to then give to humanity. So when you go through the trial, the crisis, and just accept it and be open to it, you always come back. And even in trauma, they say people have gone through the trauma process and they've actually been able to heal. They can actually come back and help other people. That's the boon. The gift is that they've gone through that path and they can give to others and give them the hope that they are able to overcome their trials and tribulations.
SubhanAllah. Right, we should end it there. But before we do, I think if you could, I'll let you go first. Or should I go first? Or you go first?
Go on.
Final projects?
What are you up to these days?
So I've just translated the book Minhaj al-Hadara. Minhaj al-Hadara al-Insaniya fi al-Qur'an, the approach to human civilization of the Qur'an by Imam Muhammad Sidran al-Bulti, which will be published by Mecca Books over in the United States. Just a bit of proofreading to do the latter chapters. I'm also waiting for Sharh Sudur, a translation that's by Imam Suyuti, about death, what happens at death, eschatology, and so forth. That's in the final stages. We're very close to publication on that, so I hope everyone can just make dua. And what are my other projects? There'll be other stuff on my plate. I'll be thinking about it. I'm just trying to grow the podcast, I think, in the meantime, which you're helping with, I think. You're helping me with. So alhamdulillah, we're always just carrying on with studies, carrying on with projects, stuff like that. But I think Idris, you should be telling us about your.
It's interesting because I said coming back to the beginning is that we met, in these lands, being in Yorkshire, and we come back now, and we've got we both got our paths. My main focus at the moment is on teaching Arabic. So I've got a Qur'anic Arabic course that's coming up in after Eid, starting on the 9th in Blackburn, Leeds, Bradford, and Keighley. It's a 1-year Arabic course where I take people from being able to read the text, recognise the letters, and like most people when they were young studying it, to actually being able to understand and translate the Qur'an and appreciate its linguistic beauty. So we look at, like many of the things we were talking about today really, is looking at the text and how to draw meaning from it, and ponder and reflect over the verses, so we can find the lessons in it for us to change our lives and improve our lives. That's the main focus of the course. So it's in those 4 cities. Also, you're able to study online as well. And so people receive the videos of the lessons, and then they can come and join the online revision classes. So it's 2 hours on the ground and 1 hour online revision classes.
Is it possible for people to do it if they're not in class physically?
As I said, because I video the lesson.
Okay.
And they get access to that within about 24 hours to watch the video, and then they can join us online as well. And even if they can't make the time, they still get access to the online.
Okay, so as they make a payment and they get exclusive access to the videos.
You get basically to download them, you get lifetime access to them. They just need to go onto Qur'anicCircle.com.
Okay, I'll put the link on.
And you can find more information about it. So it's starting September the 9th, that week it starts in Blackburn, the first class.
Okay, fantastic. I think that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you very much, Matthew, for hosting.
Alright, inshallah. Assalamu
alaikum to all you guys out there listening.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.